Describe the emotional and personal impact of the divorce and the shock of your ex moving a new partner into your shared home. Touch on the sense of disrespect and loss, not just of a relationship but of security, dignity, and trust. I want to take you back to a moment that changed everything. Not just the surface-level stuff, the legal papers, the arguments, the awkward silences, but the soul-punch kind of moment when your reality snaps in half. That's where I was. We were married. We built a life together, brick by brick. We picked out paint colors, argued over furniture, laughed in that kitchen, raised kids, shared bills, memories, the mundane and the magical. And then, just like that, he decided it was over. No warning. No real conversation. Just cold, calculated detachment. At first, I couldn't breathe. You know that kind of grief that sits on your chest and makes even brushing your teeth feel impossible? That was me. And listen, I'm not going to stand here and pretend I was perfect. No marriage is. But what happened next? That was a different level of betrayal. 'Cause it wasn't just the divorce. It was what he did after. He moved her into our house. The house where my fingerprints were in the grout, where my heart was in every photo on the wall. The house that knew my laugh, my tears, my dreams. And he moved her in like I was a placeholder he'd finally replaced. No shame. No hesitation. Just replaced me like an old light bulb. There's this moment, maybe you've had it too, when anger and sadness mix into something electric. It doesn't even have a name. It's not rage, not heartbreak. It's a sharp, clear moment of absolutely not. That's what hit me. I looked around and thought, you really believe I'm going to sit back, keep shrinking, keep folding in on myself while you play house with someone new in the life I helped build? Well, no, absolutely not. And I want to be real with you. That clarity didn't come overnight. Cried. I yelled into pillows. I doubted myself. I had friends telling me to just move on, just let it go. But I knew, deep down, I wasn't meant to roll over and hand everything away. Had a choice. Not just about revenge, not about bitterness, but about self-respect. About power. About finally choosing me. See, he underestimated me. He thought I'd be so broken, I'd just walk away quietly. But he forgot who he married. He forgot the woman who handled the mortgage paperwork, who knew where every receipt was, who knew exactly how the finances worked because I was the one holding it all together while he took it for granted. He forgot that I don't back down when it counts. That house. We both owned it. Jointly. Every piece of equity, every dime of it, half mine. So, while they were playing newlyweds in my old living room, I was meeting with attorneys, combing through documents, learning my options. Quietly, carefully. Not out of spite, but out of self-preservation. I was done begging for scraps of dignity. And when it came time to make my move, I didn't just walk away. I cashed out. I made sure I left with what I was owed. My name was on the deed, and I had every legal right to take my share. So I did. Sold the house right out from under them. They had 30 days to vacate. 30. And no, I didn't gloat. I didn't throw it in their faces. That's not who I am. I walked away with quiet fire in my chest and a simple belief in myself. That I mattered, that I deserved better, that I was not going to be erased in my own life story. What people don't talk about enough is the moment you stop begging to be seen and just decide to see yourself. That was my turning point. The betrayal didn't define me. My response did. I had been lost in that relationship, trying to keep the peace, trying to make things work. But sometimes the biggest gift someone can give you is showing you exactly how little they value you, so you can finally stop investing in them and start investing in you. So, yeah, he divorced me. Yeah, he moved her into our house. And yeah, I cashed out and left them both standing in the rubble of their choices. There's a moment, right after you get blindsided, after the betrayal, after the grief, after the what just happened, when you realize no one is coming to save you. No cavalry. No dramatic apology. No wake-up moment from the other person. It's just you, standing in the ruins of what used to be your life. And I'll be honest with you. It's terrifying. For a while I was frozen. I kept waiting for someone to come in and say, "This isn't fair," or "You don't deserve this," or "Here's how we fix it." But no one ever did. And that's when I had to decide. Am I going to stay here, stuck, hoping things magically get better, or am I going to do something about it? And here's the thing. Doing something doesn't mean screaming or burning everything down. Sometimes, taking control means getting really, really quiet. It means sitting with your anger long enough to hear what it's actually telling you. Because anger isn't always destructive. Sometimes it's the only voice left that's still fighting for you. Mine was screaming. This is not where your story ends. I realized I had spent so much of my life making sure everyone else was okay. I was the fixer, the peacemaker, the one smoothing everything over. I had contorted myself into every version of what I thought a good wife should be. And what did that get me? Replaced. Moved out emotionally, then physically. Like I didn't matter. Like the life we built could just be passed off to someone else. And I'd quietly disappear into the background. But I didn't disappear. Got real. Got focused. I stopped trying to win him back. I stopped analyzing every word. I stopped chasing closure. Because I finally understood something I wish I had realized years earlier. The only closure you'll ever really get is the moment you decide you don't need their permission to move on. So I did something radical. I took the pain, the heartbreak, the humiliation, and I turned it into fuel. I started looking at my situation like a problem to solve instead of a wound to sit in. I asked myself, what do I actually want? And more importantly, what am I willing to do to get it? I stopped reacting and started strategizing. Quietly, powerfully. I talked to people who knew the law. I dug through paperwork. I figured out where I had leverage and where I didn't. I didn't announce it. I didn't post about it. I didn't call him up to warn him. I moved like a woman who had finally remembered who she was. And the most important part, I stopped needing to be liked. That was huge for me. Because up until then, a big part of my identity was wrapped up in being nice, being agreeable, being someone people could count on even when it hurt me. But the moment I stopped performing for approval and started acting from self-respect, everything changed. When I say I took control of the narrative, I don't mean I got revenge. I mean I stopped letting someone else write my story. I took the pen back. I reminded myself that I wasn't some side character in his new happily ever after. I was the main character in my life. Always had been, I just forgot for a while. I started to see things differently. That house he brought her into. It wasn't just a house. It was a symbol of what I had helped build, and what I had the power to walk away from. And I did. Not in anger. In clarity. I knew I didn't want to keep living in a place that held me hostage to my past. Let me tell you something. The second you stop begging to be chosen is the second you start choosing yourself. And people will not like it. They'll call you cold. They'll say you've changed. But that's only because they liked the version of you who didn't know your worth. Taking control of the narrative isn't about being right. It's about being real. It's about standing up and saying, I don't need you to validate my pain for it to be real. I don't need you to agree with my decisions for them to be right for me. And once I said that to myself, I stopped looking back. So no, I didn't scream. I didn't beg. I didn't fight dirty. I just took my power back. Quietly. Strategically. And when the time came, I walked out that door knowing exactly who I was, what I was worth, and what I was never going to tolerate again. I wish someone had told me sooner. Heartbreak is painful, but being unprepared is what really costs you. When you're blindsided by betrayal, when the person you trusted most rips the rug out from under you, it's easy to feel powerless. But here's the truth. You're not powerless. You might feel devastated, you might feel lost, but you are not powerless. And the difference between staying stuck and moving forward. It's knowledge. It's knowing your worth, and knowing your rights. I'm not just talking about self-love affirmations in the mirror. I mean the hard stuff. The uncomfortable, grown-up, unsexy truth about understanding what you're legally entitled to, what you financially control, and what leverage you actually have. Because feelings are real, but they don't win court cases. They don't protect your retirement. They don't put a roof over your head. You've got to know where you stand. After the shock of my divorce, I remember sitting in that house, our house, and feeling like the walls were closing in on me. He had already moved her in. I was still raw, still figuring out what had just happened, and meanwhile he was playing house like I'd never existed. First I was paralyzed. I thought, I'll just walk away. I don't want to deal with any of this. But then something in me snapped. A quieter voice, stronger than the hurt, said, "Hold on. Before you do anything, figure out exactly what you're walking away from." So I did. I pulled every document I could find. Mortgage statements, bank accounts, retirement funds, utility bills. I became a detective in my own life. Because here's the thing. I had been the one managing most of that stuff anyway. Like so many women, I had been keeping it all running in the background while he lived in the foreground. But now that behind-the-scenes work was my lifeline. I sat down with a lawyer, not out of vengeance but because I needed clarity. I needed someone who could walk me through the facts without emotion. I asked every question I could think of, even the ones that made me feel stupid. Because pride doesn't keep you protected. Information does. I learned how property rights worked in our state. I learned what equity I had in the house. I learned what my legal rights were as a co-owner. And I learned that, contrary to the narrative he tried to feed me, I wasn't walking away with nothing. I was entitled to half. Half of everything. That changed the entire game. Not because I suddenly wanted to fight, but because I finally understood I had options. He wanted me to feel small. He wanted me to believe that he held all the cards. But the only reason I ever thought that was because I hadn't picked mine up yet. Let me say this clearly. If you're in the middle of heartbreak, betrayal, or separation, don't just sit in the pain. Sit in your power. Know your numbers. Know your rights. And for the love of everything, stop thinking that asking questions makes you petty or difficult or vindictive. Makes you smart. And if someone tries to make you feel guilty for protecting your own future, that's probably because they're benefiting from your confusion. I didn't become ruthless, I became clear. I didn't become greedy, I became fair. Fair to myself, finally. That clarity gave me the strength to make bold moves. To sell the house. Cash out. To walk away with my share, not out of spite, but because it was mine. It always was. I had just forgotten that, in the chaos of trying to hold everything together. And let me tell you something else. Knowing your worth isn't just about the numbers in a bank account. It's about your emotional equity, too. The time, the energy, the support, the sacrifices you've made. That's all value. That matters. But the world isn't going to recognize that unless you do first. You can't wait for someone else to validate what you brought to the table. You need to name it, claim it, and act accordingly. This experience taught me that knowledge is a form of self-respect. When you know what's yours, you stop asking for permission. You stop second-guessing yourself. You stop settling for crumbs just to keep the peace. And when you do that, something incredible happens. You start making decisions from a place of grounded power instead of desperation. I wasn't trying to win anymore. I wasn't trying to hurt him back. I was trying to honor myself. And that's exactly what I did. 'Cause I knew my worth. And I knew my rights. And that's what gave me the strength to leave that house behind. Not with nothing, but with everything I had earned. There's a moment when you walk through a door, one you used to open every day, and it just doesn't feel like home anymore. Not because the furniture changed or the walls were painted a different color, but because the energy is gone. The safety. The love. The history still lingers in the corners, but it's tainted. That house, our house, used to hold memories. Now it held something else entirely. Him and her, playing house in what used to be mine. I could have stayed stuck in the pain. I could have stewed in it, played every sad song, told the story to every friend on a loop. And for a while I did. There's no shame in that. You're allowed to hurt. You're allowed to feel angry. You're allowed to cry and feel sorry for yourself for a bit. But then you have to choose something different. At some point, I realized I had nothing left to prove. Not to him. Not to her. Not even to the people watching from the sidelines. What I needed was to take care of me. So I made a decision. Not an impulsive, vengeful one, but a quiet, calculated, powerful one. I was going to walk away on my terms. Not like a victim. Not like someone who'd been tossed aside. I was going to walk away like someone who knew exactly what she was worth, and exactly what she was doing. I sold the house. I didn't do it to make a scene. I didn't even tell anyone until the paperwork was in motion. I knew I had every right to do it, and I exercised that right. Half the house was mine. And if he wanted to build a new life with someone else inside the shell of the one we created, fine. But not with my name on the title. Not with my money in the walls. Not with me funding the very betrayal that tried to break me. Let me tell you, that moment, the moment I signed the papers and handed over the keys, wasn't just about real estate. It was a clean-cut declaration. It was me saying, I am done being a footnote in someone else's story. I didn't care where they would go. I wasn't thinking about how uncomfortable it would be for them. That wasn't my responsibility. My responsibility was getting me out of that toxic dynamic with dignity and peace. And here's the best part, it felt good. Not revenge good. Not spite good. But freedom good. It felt like breathing again for the first time after being underwater for too long. It felt like I had finally stopped asking, why would he do this? And started asking, why would I stay in a situation that no longer serves me? The idea of leaving them homeless might sound harsh. But let's be real, actions have consequences. He gambled everything when he moved her in. He bet on me being too broken to do anything about it. He thought I'd just disappear. But I didn't disappear. I stood up, moved, acted. He didn't lose the house because I took it. He lost it because he gave away the person who built half of it. We're taught to be quiet when we're hurt. Take the high road. To keep the peace, even at our own expense. But there comes a time when keeping the peace is just enabling disrespect. When silence doesn't make you noble, it just makes you invisible. And I decided I wasn't going to be invisible in my own story anymore. So I walked away with my share. I didn't demand more than what was fair. I didn't shout from the rooftops. I just made my move clean and clear. And when the day came, I turned the key in that front door one last time and said goodbye. Not just to the house, but to the version of myself that stayed small, that waited, that begged to be treated with basic decency. That woman doesn't live there anymore. I started over. Found a new space. One that didn't come with ghosts and resentments baked into the floorboards. And every time I open the front door now, I know. I didn't just cash out of a house. I cashed out of a relationship that tried to erase me. And I left with my head held high, with my integrity, and with the deep, unshakable knowledge that I did what needed to be done. Starting over sounds exciting in theory. Like some empowering movie montage where everything just clicks into place and you emerge stronger and shinier than ever. But real life doesn't work that way. Starting over, especially after betrayal, doesn't begin with confidence. Begins with questions. Deep, scary, painful questions like, who am I now? What do I even want anymore? Can I actually rebuild when everything I trusted just fell apart? That was me. After the house was sold, after the documents were signed, after I'd done the bold thing, cashed out and left them standing in the mess they made, I didn't feel triumphant. Not immediately. Felt empty. Free, yes, but also scared. I had cut the cord, walked away from the shared life. But now I was standing in the blank space of what comes next. And let me tell you, blank space can be just as intimidating as heartbreak. I didn't have a 5-year plan. I didn't have all the answers. What I had was a suitcase full of clothes, a small chunk of money, and a fire in my chest that said, you didn't come this far just to collapse now. So, I did what a lot of us do in those moments. I started small. I started by making my bed every morning. I know that sounds ridiculous, but when your world feels chaotic, routine becomes an anchor. Then I made myself coffee, not just to survive the day, but to actually enjoy something again. I forced myself to go for walks. I reached out to friends I'd drifted from. And I let myself cry, but I didn't let myself stay there. That was the turning point. Not pretending everything was fine, but choosing to keep moving anyway. People think rebuilding your life means giant leaps. New careers, new homes, epic revelations. But that's not how it looks at first. Rebuilding looks like paying your own bills and realizing you're capable. It looks like going to dinner alone and not feeling ashamed. It looks like laughing again and catching yourself mid-laugh because you didn't think you'd ever feel light like that again. It's baby steps. It's one foot in front of the other, even when your knees are shaking. And somewhere in all that, I started to realize I wasn't just healing. I was rediscovering myself. The version of me that existed before the relationship, before I started compromising my needs, my goals, my voice. I started asking myself questions I had long silenced. What do I want in a home? What kind of relationships do I want to build from now on? What parts of me did I shrink to make someone else comfortable? When you're in a toxic dynamic, you learn how to disappear piece by piece. You stop speaking up. You start second-guessing your instincts. You become the master of keeping the peace at your own expense. And when it ends, that silence is so loud it can be unbearable. But that silence is also an invitation. An invitation to fill it with your own voice again. Your own choices. Your own dreams. I went back to school. Took a class I had put off for years. Started saying yes to things that scared me a little but excited me more. I traveled. I laughed louder. I stopped waiting for life to be perfect before I participated in it. And somewhere along the way, I stopped looking over my shoulder to see how they were doing. I stopped checking to see if they were happy in our house, or if they missed me, or if they regretted what they did. Because it wasn't about them anymore. Never really was. It was always about me. About finally choosing myself after years of abandoning that choice. Rebuilding isn't about proving anything to the person who hurt you. It's about proving something to yourself. That you're not defined by how someone treated you. That your worth isn't dependent on who stayed or who left. That you can lose everything and still rise. And no, it wasn't easy. There were setbacks. There were nights when the loneliness hit like a wave and I wasn't sure I'd ever feel okay again. But then I'd remember. I've already survived the worst part. I've already walked out of the fire. Everything from here is mine to build, mine to shape, mine to own. And you know what's wild? The life I have now, the version of me that exists today, is someone I genuinely love. Not in a cliché way but in a real, grounded way. I respect her. I trust her. And I fought like hell to become her. There's a powerful lesson I learned through this whole ordeal that I want to share with you, because it's one that doesn't get talked about enough. Sometimes, walking away isn't just about leaving behind what hurts you, it's about stepping into a new kind of freedom. Freedom that's not loud or flashy, but quiet and deeply transformative. It's freedom that says, I'm done living someone else's story. I'm done letting other people define my worth. I'm choosing me. When he left, when he moved her in, it felt like my whole world shattered. But what I came to understand is that the breaking was also a breaking open. A chance to rebuild myself from the ground up on my terms. That's the real power in walking away. It's not just about cutting ties or moving out of a house. It's about reclaiming your identity, your dignity, and your voice. You see, for so long I had lived inside a story someone else wrote for me. I was the wife, the partner, the caretaker, and I played that role well, too well maybe. I put my needs on the back burner, smoothed over conflicts, and kept the peace even when it cost me my peace of mind. I lost sight of who I was beyond that role. But once I stepped out, once I cashed out and walked away, I began to see myself differently. I realized that my worth isn't tied to any one person, any one relationship, or any one house. My worth is inherent. It's unshakable. And that realization changed everything. Walking away is an act of courage because it means choosing yourself in a world that often tells you to stay silent, to endure, to sacrifice your happiness for the sake of others. But I want you to know this. Choosing yourself isn't selfish. It's necessary. It's the foundation for every other kind of love and respect you want to experience. And here's the thing. Freedom doesn't mean you don't feel pain. You do. You feel the loss, the betrayal, the loneliness. But freedom means you refuse to let those feelings define you or keep you chained. Freedom means you take those feelings, sit with them, learn from them, and then let them go when you're ready. I want you to imagine for a moment what it would feel like to live untethered from someone else's drama, their decisions, their betrayals. What if you didn't carry the weight of someone else's choices? What if you woke up every morning knowing that you're in charge of your life, your happiness, and your future? That's what I discovered on the other side of walking away. It wasn't immediate. Took time. Took self-reflection. It took messy moments and tears and late-night conversations with myself. But slowly, piece by piece, I rebuilt my life with a new foundation, one built on respect, self-love, and fierce independence. And the irony is, the more I embraced that freedom, the less power my past had over me. I stopped needing to prove myself to anyone. I stopped explaining my decisions. I stopped apologizing for wanting more. And in that space I found peace. This freedom also taught me about boundaries, the kind that protect your heart and your mind. Walking away meant saying no to what wasn't healthy or right for me anymore. It meant recognizing when to walk away before things got toxic. It meant putting myself first without guilt. And that boundary setting became a powerful act of self-care. I want you to remember that freedom isn't a destination you arrive at. It's a practice you live every day. Some days it's easier than others. Some days you'll falter. But the important thing is that you keep choosing yourself, keep setting those boundaries, keep walking toward the life you deserve. So, when I look back now, I don't see just the pain or the betrayal. I see the gift that came wrapped inside that storm. The gift of freedom, the freedom to be myself unapologetically, the freedom to dream bigger, and the freedom to love without losing myself. And if there's one thing I want you to take away from my story, it's this. Sometimes walking away is the bravest thing you'll ever do. And on the other side of that bravery is a freedom so profound, it transforms your life forever.